Escaping the Build Trap by Melissa Perri. Picture this. You step into Marquette's offices, a fast-growing tech company where everything seems to be firing on all cylinders. Employees are glued to their screens, whiteboards overflow with elaborate diagrams, and there's this electric buzz of, well, stuff happening everywhere. Features are launching monthly, teams are grinding around the clock, and leadership is practically doing victory laps celebrating how much they're producing. But here's the thing. Underneath all that impressive noise, the company is quietly drowning. Revenue growth? Slowing down fast. The sales team? Pulling their hair out, making promises to clients that product teams have zero chance of keeping. And those product teams? They're completely fried, racing against bonus-tied deadlines, skipping the research that would actually tell them if they're building anything remotely useful. They push out 10 shiny new features in 1 month. Leadership breaks out the champagne. Success, right? Then reality hits. The website starts crashing. Customer complaints flood in. And when they finally check the data a few weeks later? Crickets. Nobody's using the new features. All that effort, all that frantic energy, all that money, straight down the drain. This company, my friend, is stuck in what I can only describe as a trap. And it's shockingly common. Almost every organization, whether massive or tiny, tumbles into this pit at some point. It's that dangerous place where we get so obsessed with building things that we completely forget to ask ourselves why we're building them in the first place. Welcome to the Build Trap. Today we're diving into an absolute gem of a book called Escaping the Build Trap by Melissa Perri. This isn't just another business manual about software development. It's essentially a survival guide for creating things that actually matter. Perri has spent years in the trenches, advising everyone from scrappy startups to billion-dollar giants, and she's watched this trap devour even the most brilliant teams. By the time we're done here, you'll not only understand what the build trap is, but you'll have a complete roadmap for escaping it. You'll see the crucial difference between looking busy and actually being effective, between cranking out features and creating genuine value. And you'll discover the secrets to building products that people don't just tolerate, but genuinely love. This is Perri's blueprint for what she calls a product-led organization. And honestly, it's a lesson that can transform not just companies, but how you approach pretty much any project in your life. So let's jump in. At the core of every business, there's this elegant, simple concept that Melissa Perri calls the value exchange system. On one side, you've got people, customers, dealing with problems, needs, and wants. On the other side, you've got a business creating products or services to solve those problems. When a customer's problem gets solved, they experience value. And that's when they give value back to the business, usually in cold, hard cash. It's a beautiful, balanced cycle. The build trap. That's what happens when we completely forget about this cycle. We lose sight of the fact that value isn't lurking inside the thing we make. It's in the problem that thing solves for someone else. Companies tumble into this trap when they start keeping score with the wrong numbers. Instead of asking, did we actually solve our customer's problem? Or did we hit our business goals? They start asking, how many features did we ship this month? They transform into what I like to call a feature factory, mindlessly churning out more and more stuff, obsessing over output instead of outcome. Developers get rewarded for writing code, designers for creating pixel-perfect mock-ups, and product managers for maintaining impossibly long lists of things to build. Everyone's incredibly busy, but nobody's stopping to ask if any of it actually moves the needle. This is exactly what went down at Marquette. Leadership was practically throwing a party over shipping 10 features, but not a single one of them improved their actual goal, growing revenue. They were mistaking motion for progress. So how do you break out? Perri explains it starts with fundamentally rewiring how we think about the things we create. We need to shift from a project mindset to a product mindset. A project is a specific chunk of work with a beginning and an end. It's got deadlines, milestones, and concrete deliverables. When the project wraps up, the team moves on to whatever's next. A product, though? That's a living, breathing thing. It's a vehicle for delivering value that needs constant care and feeding over time. You don't just build a feature, pat yourself on the back, and walk away. You launch it, measure what happens, learn from the results, and keep iterating until it successfully solves the customer's problem and achieves your business goals. A project is a sprint. A product is a marathon. Companies that organize themselves around this philosophy are what Perri calls product-led organizations. They understand that the success of their products is what actually drives the company's growth and value. They're not led by sales, where the product roadmap becomes whatever the last big client demanded. They're not led by a single visionary genius, where the entire company's future balances precariously on one person's shoulders. And they're not led by technology, chasing whatever shiny new toy catches their eye without any clear strategy for delivering customer value. A product-led company puts the product and the value it creates right at the center of everything. And to pull that off, you need a very particular type of person guiding the way. You need an exceptional product manager. The guide: what a great product manager really does. Now, if you've heard the term product manager, you've probably also heard people call them the CEO of the product. Perri absolutely hates this phrase, and for good reason. A CEO has real authority. They can hire people, fire people, and pivot the entire company on a dime. A product manager, on the other hand, usually has exactly zero direct authority over their team. They can't order engineers to code or designers to design. Their power comes from something way more subtle and way harder to master: influence. To understand what a great product manager actually is, it helps to first look at what they're not. Perri outlines a few classic archetypes you'll find in companies stuck deep in the build trap. First up, there's the mini CEO. This is the arrogant product manager who thinks their job is having all the best ideas and dictating them to everyone else. They fall head over heels in love with their own solutions and dismiss anyone else's input. The result? A completely demotivated team and products nobody wants because they were born from ego, not from genuine customer needs. Then, you've got the waiter. This product manager is basically an order taker. They go around asking stakeholders, managers, or customers, "What do you want?" They collect a shopping list of feature requests and hand them off to the development team. There's no strategy, no vision, no real decision-making happening. This leads to what Perri calls the product death cycle. You ask customers what features they're missing, you build those features, nobody uses them, so you go back and ask what other features they want. You're stuck in this endless reactive loop, always building what people ask for instead of understanding and solving their deeper problems. Finally, there's the former project manager. This person is completely obsessed with when. When will this be done? Are we hitting our deadlines? They focus relentlessly on timelines and execution, which matters, sure, but they forget to ask the most critical question of all: why? A great product manager owns the why. Why are we building this? What problem does it solve for our customers? How does it help our business reach its goals? They have deep knowledge of both the business side and the customer side, and their real job is finding that sweet spot where those two worlds overlap. They're not the lone genius with all the answers. They're more like the conductor of an orchestra, bringing together the collective brilliance of their designers, engineers, and researchers to create something remarkable. Perri shares this fantastic example of a product manager named Megan, who worked on mortgage software at a big bank. Her department's vision was straightforward: make it easier for people to apply for a mortgage. Her specific business goal was increasing the number of first-time applications that actually got completed, because a whopping 60% of people who started the process were bailing out and going to competitors. Megan didn't just start throwing solutions at the wall. She started with why. She dug into the data, and then she did something crucial. She talked to the actual people who had abandoned their applications. She and her team discovered a clear pattern. Tons of people were dropping out because they had to physically go into a bank branch to get their documents verified, and finding an appointment was a nightmare. Bingo. There was the real problem. Not a lack of features, but a genuine, painful obstacle in the real world. Once the problem was crystal clear, her team brainstormed several possible solutions. They didn't just build the first idea that popped into their heads. They ran a small, scrappy experiment. They worked with a handful of applicants and just had them email their documents. Someone at the bank reviewed them manually. The result? People who used this simple manual process completed their applications 90% more often. They had validated their solution. Only then did they start building a more automated, scalable online system. Megan succeeded because she started with why. She fell in love with her customer's problem, not with her own clever solution. She worked collaboratively with her team to experiment and learn, dramatically reducing the risk of building the wrong thing. And crucially, her organization gave her the space and the outcome-focused goals she needed to succeed. That's the essence of great product management. It's not just a role you play on a team. It's a career built on a foundation of strategy, empathy, and a relentless focus on creating genuine value. The compass, a strategy that isn't a plan. Now, a great product manager, like Megan, can't just operate in a vacuum. They need a guiding star, a compass, pointing the entire organization in the same direction. This is where strategy enters the picture. And here, Perri makes one of the most crucial distinctions in the entire book. A good strategy is not a detailed plan. A plan is just a list of things to do, a roadmap crammed with features and their attached deadlines. This is what Marquette's CTO was demanding, a detailed document laying out everything the team would build for the next 3 months. This kind of thinking is precisely what locks companies in the build trap. Why? Because it assumes you already have all the answers. It leaves zero room for learning, for discovery, for the very real possibility that your initial assumptions might be completely wrong. A good strategy, instead, is what Perri calls a deployable decision-making framework. It's a set of guiding principles that helps everyone in the organization make smart choices. It connects the company's big-picture vision to the daily work happening in the trenches. To really understand why this matters so much, let's look at 2 famous stories, Netflix and Kodak. Back in the mid-2000s, Netflix was crushing it with DVDs by mail, but founder Reed Hastings had a crystal-clear vision: provide movies and TV shows in the most convenient way possible. He knew DVDs were just a stepping stone. The future was streaming, so the company's strategy was elegantly simple. First, dominate DVD. Second, lead streaming. Third, expand worldwide. This wasn't a detailed plan, it was a framework. It empowered teams to make decisions. When they realized people wanted to watch movies on their TVs, not just their laptops, they started building their own streaming box, which you might know today as Roku. But literally days before launch, Hastings killed the entire project. Why? Because he realized that becoming a hardware company didn't align with their core vision of being an entertainment distribution service. The strategy framework gave him the clarity to make that incredibly painful but absolutely correct decision. Instead, they partnered with Xbox and got Netflix onto millions of TVs almost overnight. Now contrast that with Kodak. In 2008, an innovation team from Cornell University, which actually included a young Melissa Perri, was asked to figure out what young people wanted from photography. They did the research. They talked to actual users. And they came back with a crystal-clear pitch. Kodak needed to get its world-class camera technology into phones and build simple, on-device photo editing software. Sound familiar? They basically pitched the concept of Instagram to Kodak before Instagram existed. But what happened? Absolutely nothing. The company was so trapped in its old ways, so paralyzed by annual budgeting cycles and bureaucracy, that it couldn't act. It lacked a strategic framework that could translate a brilliant new opportunity into action. It had a plan: keep selling cameras and film, and it couldn't deviate from it. We all know how that story ended. So how do you actually create a strategy that functions as a framework? Perri lays out a clear hierarchy, a cascade of whys flowing through the organization. It starts at the very top with the company vision. This is your North Star. Why does the company exist? Where is it headed in the next 5 to 10 years? For Amazon, it's, quote, to be Earth's most customer-centric company. Flowing from that are the strategic intents. These are the handful of critical, high-level business challenges you need to overcome to move toward your vision. For Marquetley, after they got their act together, it was things like expand into the enterprise business and, quote, double revenue growth from individual users. These aren't feature lists, they're outcome-focused goals. Next come the product initiatives. This is where you translate those business challenges into problems your products can actually solve. For Marquetley's goal of growing individual user revenue, one initiative became, we believe that by increasing the amount of high-quality content on our site, we can acquire and retain more users. That's a testable hypothesis connecting a user problem, not enough good classes, to a business goal, more revenue. Finally, at the team level, you have options. These are the different potential solutions you can explore to achieve the product initiative. To get more content, Marquetley's options were: make it easier for existing teachers to create courses, find brand new teachers, or create a feedback loop so teachers knew what students actually wanted. This framework provides what teams desperately crave: alignment and autonomy. Each level defines the what and the why, giving the level below it the freedom to figure out the how. This is how you escape the trap of top-down plans and actually empower teams to solve real problems. And the engine driving this whole process is something Perri calls the product kata. The path, the product kata in action. The term kata comes from martial arts. It's a series of movements you practice over and over until they become second nature. The product kata is a mental routine, a scientific and systematic way for teams to navigate all the uncertainty of building great products. It's a continuous cycle of learning and adapting, and it has 4 core stages. Let's follow Krista's team at Marquetley as they use this process to solve their content problem. Stage 1. Understand the direction. The team starts with their product initiative. Get more high-quality content on the site to increase user acquisition and retention. They also have an option goal: make it faster and easier for existing teachers to create more courses. They've got a clear destination in mind. Stage 2. Analyze the current state. Where are they right now? Krista's team digs into the data. They're genuinely shocked to discover that only 25% of teachers who start creating a course ever actually publish it. And only 10% of their teachers have ever created a second course. The numbers are absolutely dismal. But now they have a baseline. The gap between where they are and where they want to be is massive. Stage 3. Set the next goal. The team needs to figure out what's causing this huge drop-off. So their first step isn't rushing to build a solution, it's to learn. Their goal becomes identifying the key pain points preventing teachers from publishing courses. Stage 4. Experiment toward the goal. This is where the cycle of exploration really begins. Krista's team starts with problem exploration. They don't just fire off a survey. They actually get on video calls with 20 teachers and watch them try to create a course in real time. They witness the frustration firsthand. The workflow is confusing, the software is buggy, and teachers struggle to import content they've already created elsewhere. But as they dig deeper, they stumble onto a genuinely surprising discovery. They run a small concierge experiment, offering to manually upload all the course content for a handful of teachers. The teachers send over their materials, but not in the way the team expected. They send unedited video files with separate audio tracks and detailed instructions on how they want everything edited. The team has an aha moment. They've completely misunderstood the problem. The biggest pain point isn't just uploading content to Marquetley's platform. It's the absolutely monumental task of creating and editing high-quality videos in the first place. Teachers were spending up to 80 hours over 2 months just trying to edit their videos. Now they've got a much deeper, more specific problem to solve. This leads them into solution exploration. They need to test their new hypothesis. If we solve the video editing problem, more teachers will publish courses. They run another concierge experiment, but this time they borrow Marquetly's marketing department's video editors to edit courses for a small group of teachers. The result? Of the teachers they helped, 12 out of 14 published their course within a month, a massive jump from the typical 25% rate. Success. They validated that solving this specific problem creates the outcome they want. But hiring an entire army of video editors isn't exactly a scalable solution. So Karen, the VP of Product, explores a, quote, partner or buy decision. She discovers a software company in Budapest that makes a simple, user-friendly video editing tool. The team runs one final experiment. They give 40 teachers access to this third-party software, along with a quick guide. The result? 30 of the 40 teachers published their courses. It wasn't quite as high as the manual editing approach, but it was far more scalable and still a huge win. Finally, they move into solution optimization. With the problem validated and a promising solution identified, Marquetly actually acquires the Budapest company. Now Krista's team has a clear vision for the integrated feature. They use techniques like story mapping to break down the work, prioritize the most critical components for the first release, and set clear success metrics. Adoption by 75% of teachers, a published course rate of at least 60%, and a decrease in course creation time from 3 months to less than 1. They launched the first version. They hit some goals, but not all. The adoption rate only reaches 60%. But here's the thing. They aren't done. They don't just move on to the next shiny project. They go right back to the product kata. They diagnose the new problem. Why aren't some teachers adopting the new tool? And they keep iterating until they reach their outcome. This process is the beating heart of a product-led organization. It's a fundamental shift from the linear, rigid path of a traditional plan to a dynamic, cyclical path of continuous learning. But even this powerful process can completely fail if the surrounding environment, the organization itself, isn't set up to support it. The ecosystem, building a truly product-led organization. For a company to genuinely escape the build trap, the transformation has to go way deeper than just the product teams. It needs to permeate the entire organization's culture, policies, and structure. It starts with outcome-focused communication. Leaders need to stop asking, when will it be done, and start asking, what progress have we made toward our goal? This requires a regular rhythm of meetings, like quarterly business reviews, where the conversation centers on strategic intents and outcomes, not just feature lists. Roadmaps need to change too. Instead of being Gantt charts stuffed with dates, they become living documents that communicate strategy, themes of work, and the current stage of development, from early experimentation all the way to a feature that's generally available. Next, you've got to tackle rewards and incentives. This is where so many transformation efforts completely fall apart. You can't tell your teams to focus on outcomes and then tie their bonuses to shipping features by a deadline. That creates a direct, painful conflict. One company Perri worked with had a corporate scorecard, and every December, teams would frantically scramble to build and ship anything, no matter how sloppy or useless, just to check the boxes so they could get their bonuses. A product-led organization rewards learning, achieving goals, and solving real customer problems. This ties directly into creating a culture of safety and learning. To truly innovate, people have to be able to try things that might not work. They need permission to fail. Not spectacular, company-ending failures, obviously, but small, fast, low-cost failures that generate valuable insights. Experimentation is actually the ultimate risk management strategy. It's far better to discover an idea is terrible after a 2-week experiment than after a 2-year multi-million-dollar project. Leaders create safety not by eliminating all risk, but by setting clear boundaries. You can spend this much time or this much money to explore this idea, and then come back and tell us what you learned. Even the budgeting process has to fundamentally change. The old way is the dreaded annual plan, where teams have to predict a year in advance exactly what they'll build to secure their funding. This actively punishes learning and adapting, A product-led company budgets more like a venture capitalist. It provides small amounts of seed funding to teams to explore new opportunities. As a team validates its ideas with actual data and shows progress toward an outcome, it receives more funding to scale its efforts. Funding follows value, not a pre-written plan. Finally, and perhaps most importantly, there's customer centricity. This has to be way more than a feel-good slogan on a motivational poster. It has to be a deep, genuine obsession that starts at the very top. It's Jeff Bezos' famous mantra to be Earth's most customer-centric company. It's the farming technology company John Deere, sending its software engineers out into actual fields to work alongside real farmers so they can deeply understand the world of their customers. When an entire organization falls genuinely in love with its customers' problems, it becomes almost impossible to stay stuck in the build trap. Escaping the build trap isn't some quick fix you can implement over a weekend. For Marquetley, it took years. It required a CEO willing to lead the change and genuinely trust his people. It required transforming their roles, their strategy, their processes, and their entire culture. But in the end, they didn't just build a better product. They built a better, more resilient, and far more valuable company. They stopped just being busy, and they started making a real, measurable impact. When you step back and really look at the core message of escaping the build trap, you realize it's about something way more profound than just managing a software team. It's a powerful argument against one of the most pervasive illusions in modern work and life, the illusion that activity equals progress. We're all, in some way, vulnerable to the build trap. We pack our calendars with back-to-back meetings, our to-do lists with endless tasks, and we measure our days by how much we got done. We celebrate being busy. We wear exhaustion like a badge of honor. But this book gently and wisely asks us to pause and ask a more difficult question. Did any of it actually matter? The most powerful lesson for me is this shift from falling in love with a solution to falling in love with a problem. It's so incredibly easy and so human to get excited about our own brilliant idea. We can see it perfectly in our minds, all polished and complete, and we rush headlong to build it. But Perri teaches us a more humble and ultimately far more effective path. The path of curiosity. The path of asking why again and again, of sitting down with a customer and truly listening to their struggles, of being genuinely willing to let go of our brilliant idea when the evidence clearly shows us it's not what's actually needed. This approach fundamentally transforms work from a process of execution into a process of discovery. It's less about being a builder and more about being a detective, carefully piecing together clues to uncover a hidden truth about what people truly need. And when you finally find that truth, the solutions you build aren't just incrementally better, they feel almost inevitable. So how can you start applying these ideas right now, even if you're not a product manager at some tech company? First, the next time someone hands you a task or you start a new project, take just a moment to practice the product kata in your own mind. Ask yourself, what's my ultimate goal here? What's the actual outcome I'm trying to create? And what's the biggest problem standing in my way? Just reframing your work around a problem to be solved, rather than a task to be checked off, can radically change your entire approach. Second, go talk to your customer. Whether that's an actual paying client, a colleague in another department, or even a family member you're trying to help, carve out 15 minutes to just listen. Don't jump in with solutions. Just ask questions. What's the hardest part about this for you? If you could wave a magic wand and fix one thing, what would it be? You'll be genuinely amazed at what you discover when you stop trying to solve and start trying to understand. Finally, take a hard look at how you measure your own success. At the end of the day or the week, do you feel good because you crossed a ton of items off your list, or because you made real progress on something that truly matters? Shifting your personal definition of done from an output to an outcome is the first critical step in escaping your own personal build trap. That was the book summary of Escaping the Build Trap by Melissa Perri. We've explored the most important ideas in her work today, but I'll be honest with you, a summary can only show you the map. The real adventure happens when you decide to take the journey yourself. It's in those quiet moments of reading, when a particular story or a simple phrase connects with your own experience in a way you didn't expect. This summary is your guidepost, designed to help you decide if this is a path worth walking. If anything we've talked about today has sparked something in you, I genuinely encourage you to grab a copy, because reading it isn't just about learning a new framework. It's an experience that can genuinely change the way you see your work, your goals, and the value you create in the world. A link to the book is in the description. Also, if you found this journey valuable, please show your support by hitting that like button and subscribing to Billionaire's Bookshelf. That way, you won't miss our next exploration into another transformative book. Let's keep learning and keep growing together.